appreciate everyone setting out some time to sit in on this series. Like Paul mentioned, this is the fifth iteration in a specific cybersecurity bootcamp series that we've put together. If you find value in the things that are covered today, or you like a little bit about what we're doing, love your feedback, but also, share it with anyone in the industry that you think might benefit from it. We put these programs together based on partner feedback of looking for help, discussing these items, discussing these capabilities, and understanding cybersecurity and how to help your clients and how to capture additional revenue and grow your business. So thank you very much for all of our trusted advisor partners, agents, and partners that are on the line today for joining us. And today we're going to be jumping into really flexibility around layered defense and tying in the reality conversation. There's a lot of marketing out there, a lot of different silver bullet approaches to things and things that are promoted to you as trusted advisors. Quest has been in this industry for 42 plus years. We've heard multiple different marketing iterations and campaigns, and we really like to understand what works, how to position it, and at the end of the day, understand what your clients are trying to achieve. So like Paul mentioned, we're going to be covering those reality conversations today. We're going to be covering the idea that we're going to focus on the outcome rather than coming in with assumptions, right? Oftentimes we can all walk into a client of ours with some assumptions. Really, really powerful opportunity to listen to the outcomes that they're looking for. Quest has a very comprehensive cybersecurity suite, and one of the things that we want to focus on today is how do we incorporate those services with your clients in a flexible manner that meets the objectives that they're looking for. We do have some specifics in our cyber defense bundle that we're going to be drilling into a little bit today, and how those can help your clients, such as endpoint protection, breach detection, incident response, things like that. And then ultimately, let's talk through some actual strategies on how to bundle these solutions, right? There are point solutions in the layered defense architecture for cybersecurity, right? There's different features that we all want to make sure we're helping our clients get secure. But how do we bundle that? How do we make a business impact to help your customers achieve what they're ultimately looking to do? And that's, secure their environments. The goal of today, and like everything in all this entire series, which again is on our partner portal and our training series, you can go back and reference it at any time, is we want to get conversational with clients around these topics and these services. You don't need to be the expert. I'm not, by no means am I any type of expert in these services, but what Quest does very, very well, and we'd like you to do well with us also, is help start the conversation. Start the catalyst to get down the path with your client around what they're ultimately trying to achieve in cybersecurity. We've found the best way to do this is by offering flexible and adaptable solutions that meet them where they are, rather than where we necessarily want them to be day one. Help work through the challenges with them. And we want you to be comfortable and conversational having that. So any questions that come up that you might have around how to start the conversation, how to traverse, how to pivot, that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. So again, going through confidence, going to be talking around strategies on how to tailor solutions and some real world examples here, as well as, the approaches to bundling these services. And like I mentioned, Quest has been doing this for over 42 years. We started our first managed security service in 1999 for a small regional credit union in Northern California. Since 99, the cybersecurity landscape has continued to evolve. So the biggest thing when you're dealing with clients out there is helping to protect them against the evolving threats. And the best way you can do that is basically layering your defense, because you don't know which vector the bad actors are going to try to exploit at any given time. There are multiple vectors of potential exploits that these guys can go after, and they're constantly evolving and adapting. So you don't necessarily need to sell primarily on fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but you need to have the conversation with the customer around how are they planning on dealing with these evolving threats, right? That's a big area that we focus on when we're having the layered and the reality conversation. compliance and risk management. I saw some great posts on LinkedIn over the last couple months around the increased regulation and compliance mandates that are getting pressed down on your clients from higher organizations and from their partner networks that are, they're not good, they're not bad, they're frameworks, but they're guidelines to how to secure their environment. They're not the end all be all. If you go through a checkbox, initiative to basically just complete the compliance initiatives, you still need to have the actual executable ability to remediate, respond, and adapt. So compliance and risk management are fantastic for avoiding penalties and potential breaches. But again, you got to stay alert, stay alive with those actual threats that are going on out there, and deal with what really is. Our organization, Quest, has been running incident response and incident containment services. We're averaging about 4 a week, where clients come in to ir@questsys.com, who are net new to Quest in some state of emergency, where they're either experiencing a breach, experiencing malware outbreak, experiencing need for rapid response help. We did about 100 IRs in 2023. We've seen that almost double year to date in 2024. So it's not slowing down at all. And from a business continuity standpoint, the reason your clients need this is because this is one of the biggest impacts in the middle market that we're seeing to business operations. It's slowing down collaboration. It's slowing down business, from performing their core operations. And this is across all spectrums: legal, financial services, healthcare, manufacturing, retail. Doesn't matter. They all need to have a layered defense in order to avoid business interruption. And then the brand awareness as well. So why are people looking to understand how to layer their defenses? You can lose a lot of customers by going through a breach or having an incident that goes public. Not that that's the only reason to manage security, but it definitely is a reputational risk. If you're a retailer and you get breached, if you're a credit monitoring service and you get breached, if you're a large cloud service provider and there's a massive breach or vulnerability, a lot of these things are reputational risks to the business, and it can impact the bottom line for your customers. So having that diversified layered security and how you can be proactive against evolving threats is a non-technical conversation. You could ask that question to your customer anytime around, how are you layering your cybersecurity defense? What are you doing to mitigate all the different potential vulnerabilities that you might have? These are non-technical conversations. It's basically a risk management conversation. It's a business conversation. At the end of the day, that's something we strongly promote, is having that outcome-based discussion. So around the reality concept, like I mentioned before, there are a lot of vendors and promotions, and I'm inundated with emails and LinkedIn posts and LinkedIn direct messages around the next latest and greatest cybersecurity offering from the vendors out there. And that's great. There's fantastic manufacturers and vendors and folks that position these solutions and keep pushing, bleeding edge. Those are fantastic. The challenge is we don't often, as trusted advisors and managed service providers and system integrators, we're not necessarily landing in a greenfield, right? You're not necessarily getting involved in a client who's just starting this journey. They've already invested in things. They've already purchased next generation firewalls, or they've already purchased a SASE solution or endpoint protection or different things like that. So when we're having these conversations with clients, it's really important not to guess about what they're trying to do. I get questions from partners all the time about the idea of you get a piece of the information from the client and then they want a quote. Or you get one aspect of one piece of the puzzle and then tell me what it costs to do the rest. Very, very dangerous place to be. in our experience, very, very low probability of helping that client achieve what they're actually trying to do. So you don't have to be technical to understand the business outcome that they're looking for. So having an understanding of what pain points that they have with their current cybersecurity environment. We just had a partner just last week who came to us. Their current MSSP was missing the mark on supporting a certain brand firewall and endpoint protection. They wanted to move that licensing and that management to a new MSSP. That was the initial requirement. But after we talked to them a little bit more, what we also found was they didn't have a solid patch management or SIM or endpoint practice that they were confident in. So they had an MSSP that had a very specific set of SKUs that was addressing very, very specific aspects of their cybersecurity. But there were about 5 or 6 other points that were below that that was really causing the challenge for their team around the response and the remediation when an event happened. And what sparked this need was they went through an event, they got notified, but there was no remediation, there was no kind of advanced notice of, hey, your patching is not up to date and you have these vulnerabilities. It was basically a tool that they had subscribed to and they thought was a managed service. So really, really important to understand, don't guess what your clients are trying to achieve. And you can ask the question relatively directly, are you looking for a product that you can subscribe to? Or are you looking for a service that can help you with alerting and all the way through resolution, right? These are tactical questions, but they're real business impact and business outcome based questions as far as what are you looking to actually consume at the end of the day? Do you want a tool that you can subscribe to? A lot of organizations in the channel and a lot of organizations you guys deal with on a day-to-day basis confuse the idea that a subscription service equals a managed service. And that's a nuance you got to pick that apart a little bit. But just because you're subscribing to a service, a SaaS solution, or a managed security product, doesn't mean that's being managed. So having that distinction with your clients is a great conversation to understand who's actually responsible in supporting, maintaining, and operating this product. Product is kind of a dirty word because we're all, cloud first, evangelical, software as a service people, and we all love reoccurring revenue. But just because reoccurring revenue is happening doesn't mean anyone is minding the store and managing that for your clients. So very, very important distinction there. So those conversations can lead to, the whole business impact. What happens when an event occurs? Who's responsible? Who's managing the outcome? Who's managing the response? Those are non-technical questions that can kind of help flush out your client's end goals. That's going to really identify to you what is this client looking for? Do they want an endpoint protection product? Do they want a firewall as a service, but they're going to manage it? Or no, they want an MSSP to come in here, manage their firewalls, manage their endpoint, manage their systems and their patching, and update them on any potential vulnerabilities or threats, and then receive guidance on what to do. So a lot of nuance there as far as how they want to consume things. So it all comes down to kind of asking those questions. You can start high, right? So a couple key points here, like as an example, what are your current cybersecurity challenges and how are they impacting your business? If they're willing to share that with you, that's fantastic. When we respond, it's very, very important to understand what they're actually struggling with, and then what can we as a team respond with. So when you're going into that, we're going to jump here into some specific offerings. So, conversation starters around these different offerings. Quest built out what we call our CyberDefense suite. And this was built on a capability conversation. I was just on a call with a partner this morning, And we put together some marketing campaigns, and we put together some stories around how to help grow this partner's cybersecurity practice. And one of their great concerns was, and I know this is very common in the channel, is, hey, we're concerned that we don't necessarily want to carry a certain vendor's flag, if you will. We want to be agnostic. We want to be capability and conversation driven. That's the same way that Quest approaches the market when it comes to cybersecurity offerings. And that's where Quest, from an alignment with the trusted advisor community, I think has a very, very powerful message to deliver, especially in layered security, because we don't necessarily carry a specific banner into battle. All of this messaging that you're having with your client is around capabilities. So if you notice on this slide right here, there are about 70 different vendors, probably in the first 2 bullet points alone, that could address these requirements. Some are, thought leader, upper right-hand quadrant. Some are challengers. Some are, everyone's kind of in a different journey as far as their market penetration. But there are lots and lots of vendors and lots of software providers and hardware providers and service providers that can address endpoint device security, EDR, multi-factor authentication, and breach detection. If you notice, then this is a Quest strategy. This might not be yours. So again, this is something that we've been successful at, and that's part of the Bootcamp series. Having the conversation about the capability before you start pitching a certain vendor is very, very important, because you're going to understand more about what that client's trying to achieve without going into a specific vendor talk track. And nothing against vendors or manufacturers. They have their book of business, and it's their job to sell that book, right? So everyone's selling their book. I'm with Quest. I'm selling Quest's book. But our book is basically very similar to yours in the idea of, how is your client looking for, we'll start at the top here, help with endpoint device security, right? What are they looking for, and what have they experienced so far with their current investments, right? Have they had trouble with real-time detection? Have they had trouble with anomaly detection? Have they had difficulties with false positives, right? So you go through what their existing investment looks like, and then what do they need to do to either improve that investment, right? So go in there, do a checkup, help them execute and improve that current investment, or if they need to replace it with a different operating system or a different solution, we can come in and provide that as a service as well. But again, you haven't heard me say one thing about a specific vendor yet, because they're not quite there. They're not quite. You don't need to have that conversation until it presents itself. Now, some customers might hold back and be like, well, tell me who you guys use, right? Tell me what your guys' footprint is. Tell me what that looks like. We're happy to do that. We have some great key vendors and some folks. We've been in the industry for 42 years. We know what works, we know what doesn't, and we know what's improving. But going through those offerings with them is a great way to understand what they're trying to do at the end of the day from a business standpoint. So going through the list here, we built this CyberDefense suite based on what we saw clients having trouble with. So endpoint device security, endpoint protection, still a significant amount of incident response comes through the endpoint, right? So we found a lot of success with anomaly-based, machine learning-enabled endpoint detection capabilities, right? There are some great vendors out there that do this, great endpoint protection capabilities that tie into the endpoint and give our incident response team the ability to rapidly either restore, block, or isolate and respond to those platforms. So having conversations with folks about how they're dealing with their endpoint, super important. Password protection, multi-factor authentication, and breach detection, right? So helping organizations maintain their passwords, confirm from a multi-factor authentication standpoint, hey, this person is who they say they are, right? And then if there's a breach, how are we going to continuously monitor, manage, and maintain that, right? So how are they identifying a breach? How are they notifying their key stakeholders that there might be a problem, right? These are all solutions that can be dropped in and layered from a defense standpoint. I hate to say it, but 70%, around 70% of the breaches are still coming through email. And you can train personnel, you can continue to train personnel. Quest provides end user training. That's super important. But email security protection is still super critical in protecting organizations. There are multiple ways to deploy email security protection. And we have some go-tos, but oftentimes we get called into partners and to customers who already have an email solution that they like. They just perhaps need help updating it, maintaining it, modernizing it, and working with it as a service. So critical to understand, you can help them improve what they already have from an email protection standpoint, or you can help them replace it with the latest and greatest next generation services. Device monitoring, similar to EDR and MDR, it's that continual ability to manage, maintain, and respond to events. How do they respond? How do they maintain? How do they manage those assets? Right? Do they have that in place? Do they have the ability to respond, to isolate, and to basically mitigate threats quickly? Huge opportunity. Very competitive space though. So I'm not gonna throw on the rose-colored glasses here. This is a very competitive space, and a way you can differentiate yourself is by having this capability conversation. Almost everyone you're competing against is going to go in with usually one or two brands. They're going to go in with one or two offerings. They're going to say, "Here's this brand. Here's this brand. Let's do a bake off and see who wins." You can absolutely do that, but if you're doing that, remember, we all know that fact out there, and we've all repeated it, that 70% of IT initiatives fail to meet their stated objective. And cybersecurity is no different. So again, having the conversation around what the client's actually trying to do can drastically improve that success as far as implementing new initiatives. So we all like to throw out that term. It's a Gartner and a Forrester and an IDC finding that over the past 5 years, about 70 to 75%, that's 3 out of 4 initiatives fail to meet their stated objectives, but everyone kind of wants to keep doing the same vendor selection process. It's kind of like definition of insanity is we're going to do the exact same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So this is the way we've been successful in helping organizations select the appropriate technology or update what they already have in place. One of the biggest areas that is sometimes maybe not thought of in the cybersecurity realm that's big in our CyberDefense suite is the immutable storage and patch management. Immutable storage and patch management is kind of like the blocking and tackling, right? Paul and I were both offensive linemen in high school when we played football for our high school team. Not a sexy job, right? You're offensive lineman, you're in the trench, you're blocking every play, you're smashing into competitors every play. You're down there, you're not the skilled player catching the ball or throwing the touchdown or any of that stuff. You're in there in the trenches every single day. That is what patch management and immutable storage is in the cybersecurity world. It's the offensive line of your cybersecurity practice. You need to have immutable storage. Your clients need to have immutable storage options, off-net backups that cannot be corrupted in the event of a malware outbreak or in the event of a encryption of data attack, right? So immutable storage is just very simple, very low cost, we offer a couple options there that give clients very low cost insurance of having an immutable storage copy. And then patch management is along the line of that daily operational efficiency of maintaining your applications and making sure that those are patched. We have, probably on this call alone, we have multiple different versions of multiple different software packages, all communicating on one platform here. But every single one of you, I guarantee, has different patch levels that are associated with your individual environments. Your clients are no different. Patching is a discipline that needs to be maintained. And this is one of the main areas where we see opportunity to get involved in a cybersecurity discussion and kind of crack in from a flexibility standpoint. And when I say flexibility, you can provide immutable options regardless of the technology they're using for their backups today. So I don't care what platform they're using for their backups today. There is a strategy to provide a disk target that is an immutable copy of that backup, right? So, and it can be of their Microsoft environment, it can be of their Salesforce environment, it can be of their Workday environment, it can be of multiple SaaS offering environments. You can get immutable copies of their critical data onto a device that is separated from their network and cannot be accessed or rewritten or encrypted. So those are when I'm talking about flexibility, I don't care about the vendor that actually is running their backups today. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is the capability of the immutable backup. How do we get that backup secured, which we can help with? Same with patch management. They might already have a tool that's already deployed. No problem. Do they need help running that tool, optimizing that tool, or managing that tool? That's where the opportunity to get flexible and creative and help your clients where they are today is the biggest opportunity, I believe, in this flexible approach to cybersecurity. So there's one bullet point I missed here was around SIM and zero trust for network security. These two areas right here, as well as a little bit of monitoring and alerting, are the areas where firms will invest. They'll invest the most and sometimes get the least out of it. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but they buy the fancy tools, they implement them, and then after 6 months to 12 months, they don't maintain them. They get too many alerts. They get alert fatigue. They haven't tuned them. These are areas where you can really help your clients optimize their current investments. So if you missed the SIM transaction, right? They went to RSA, they got peppered with direct people calling them, they got sold something. That's great. Stay in touch with them. Ask if they need help with optimizing that, with managing that, with tuning that, with improving what they've invested in. Same for zero trust. Zero trust is a conversation that never ends, and they're always going to need help executing because it's extremely complex. So zero trust and SIM are two areas where you as a trusted advisor and as a partner can bring in an organization, bring in Quest to help tune, update, and then potentially manage and support that environment going forward. This will give you the ability to scale regardless of what the client's trying to deal with, right? So rather than going in with a specific point product, you can go in with the ability to have that flexible conversation of what are you trying to do? And then you can bring in Quest experts in these different service categories to optimize what they have or replace it with something that can fit the need that they've identified to you through talking with them. So at Quest, we love to bundle services. And these bundles, a little backstory on how we got to our CyberDefense suite. About 5 years ago, we had seen some incidents. We had seen some incident response scenarios. Over the years, we'd seen a lot of security issues, disaster recovery issues, things like that. And we thought it was a good idea to come up with a four product bundle, right? So I forget what we priced it at. It was like, I think it was about $10 a user or something like that back in 2019. And it included a couple things. It included endpoint protection. I believe it included monitoring of firewalls. It included some password protection, and at the time it was a URL defense, right? So it would protect your and email security. So it would protect your email, it would protect your endpoint, it would protect your users from URL defense, basically an umbrella. We were using Cisco Umbrella. It protected you from calling out, and going to websites that potentially could download malicious code to the network, and we monitored the firewalls. And it was a bundled price. And I'll be honest, I came up with the idea. I thought it was myself and a couple of our technical consultants. We came up with this great idea. Thought it was awesome. What happened? Well, we found that most everybody that we talked to, we sold it to a couple clients. It got put out there. But what happened was we found that, hey, everyone already kind of has an endpoint protection platform in place. And everyone also has email security. And everyone always had a piece of that platform already deployed. So you go in there, we're not the smartest guys in the room. We have to learn through, kind of stubbing our toes and bumping our heads ourselves. If you go in there with a predefined package solution, you're challenging your customer on multiple different vectors, and you're having to defend those multiple different vectors, as opposed to, hey, here's all of the CyberDefense suite that we have. Here's all the different capabilities we have. Are there any gaps that you have in your environment right now that need to be addressed, right? Are there, you have endpoint protection squared away, but maybe you don't have a URL defense in place. Maybe you don't have a good email security package that you're comfortable with managing. So it took us about 8 months to figure out, this isn't going the way we thought it was. And the funny thing was, with that 4 package bundle, we were probably about, if you bought them individually, so we did some investigation with our competitors. If you bought them individually, we were about 50 to 60% below market when we compared them to our competitors buying them a la carte. Didn't matter. The clients had selected different packages that they liked, and they didn't need help with the full suite. But what we learned, and we pivoted very quickly, was they would say, hey, I don't need endpoint protection. I don't need email security, but I could really use some help tuning and managing my firewalls. Or I could really use some help with, you mentioned you guys did some immutable backups. I don't have an immutable backup copy. Can you talk to me more about that? So the CyberDefense suite, we evolved it to a package of all the different offerings we have. There's about 13 of them that address cybersecurity layered defense services. So you have edge security, you have anomaly-based detection, you have full MDR, you have password protection, multi-factor authentication, email security. All of these different layers are bundled within the CyberDefense suite. Now, can a client scoop up all of them? Absolutely, 100%. Quest, we use a big chunk of our CyberDefense suite as part of our incident response package. So when an incident response team kicks off, we have a predefined kind of go-to model where we know what we're deploying for endpoint, we know what we're deploying for isolating that environment, and we know how to contain an environment and hopefully extract uncompromised backups very, very quickly. So these are battle tested every week, so we know what works and we know what doesn't, and we're building that out constantly. But as opposed to coming in with a predefined bundle, what really works is coming in with the ability to adapt and then bundle based on what they need. So this is where it turns into a lot of fun. We just won a deal today, and I'm not even knocking on wood because the signed SLA came in today, this morning. High five to the partner. Awesome deal. It was about $32,000 a month MRR. And what it was they had a firewall platform that they had already invested in. And we were brought in with some of our competitors in the channel. And what happened was all of our competitors wanted to rip and replace their existing firewalls and didn't want to leverage their existing email security platform. We came in with a flexible approach where we said, hey, you still have 2 years of licensing left on this cybersecurity platform that you've invested in. We'll manage, maintain that, and operate that for you over the next 3 years. And at the same time, we'll help you transition from the email cybersecurity package you have right now to one that you already like. They had already selected one that they liked, but they couldn't find an MSP or a managed security service provider that would operate the technology that they preferred, as well as supporting the platform that they already invested in from a firewall standpoint. So if you want to know a way to kind of change the game within your clients, is that flexibility conversation of, hey, Quest can operate what you have, and we can help transition and manage what you want. Super powerful, super creative, very, very unique way to go in there and help a customer understand what they could do with their current investments. And this is a business conversation. It wasn't technical. The technical conversation had already been decided by the time we got brought in. One of our TSB partners lined it up perfectly. They told us exactly the landscape of what the customer was dealing with from a challenge perspective. We got on that call, evaluated how it looked, and basically put together a customized package for it. So really, really focusing on that client-centric, what are you trying to do? What do you actually need help with? Huge game changer when it comes to cybersecurity, because there's so many layers. If you try to position an entire suite of services, you can get killed on any one of those potential layers where they don't want you, right? So don't fight that battle, right? Fight a battle that you can win. And the battle you can win is being flexible and bundling based on the client's need. So really, I know it seems super simple, and I'm way oversimplifying the sales process that went on with that example I just gave. But at the end of the day, that's really what it was. They had a platform that they invested in. They had 2 years left on it. They had an email security platform they wanted to transition to, and they couldn't find anyone else to manage. The partner brought in Quest and was like, hey, will you guys do this? Yes. No, we say yes a lot. So the partner was like, okay, well, show me. So we walked him through the process of how we would do that. Passed the sniff test, got in front of the customer, and we had a great win. So, sorry about that. So kind of, going through, wrapping up a little bit here as far as how to win and how to be successful. Really, really focus on that flexible approach. There are thousands of different cybersecurity platforms out there today. They all have great features, great functionality, fantastic capabilities. So not saying one is better than the other, but your clients have beliefs and they're going to buy into different strategies. Don't challenge that necessarily. Roll with it and help them shore up what they have already invested in, and then layer in additional features and functions and get to that conversation. It's going to evolve. All of these opportunities evolve on a daily basis. The reality conversation, I know sometimes we don't like to have that conversation, but what do they think this is going to cost, right? What's their budget for this requirement? How have they done this in the past? How do they see it going different this time? Those are non-technical questions. You don't have to be an expert in cybersecurity to ask them what they think, this new endpoint detection or MDR solution is going to cost them. What's it going to cost their business if they get breached? Have they done a business impact analysis? Do they need help with that? Do they understand what those are going to cost, what that impact the business is going to cost? And then have that outcome goal. Like, hey, we got to spend $50,000 or $100,000 this year to mitigate a $2 million loss, right? That's a business conversation. It's not a cybersecurity conversation. And sometimes people in our industry, we get so wrapped up with best of breed and let's talk speeds and feeds and let's all impress each other with our knowledge. That's great, but there's a buyer at the end of that who actually is running a business, who needs to understand what's the risk to my business if I don't do this? What's the risk to my business if I do? Having those candid conversations, that reality discussion will put you in a different tier. And then you have a partnership with Quest where we can come in and help you execute on that business outcome conversation. Totally different approach, a lot of fun. Just had a great win today, so I'm well caffeinated and really excited about that approach and how it can help grow your business and help grow ours. But definitely a huge opportunity for you guys as channel partners and partners of Quest to kind of go in that and have that reality conversation. And then last point we just kind of covered, and I probably beat it to death, the flexibility of understanding what they have in place, what they want to keep, and where you can augment and transition and help them with new services. Being able to bundle that together in one SLA is very unique. And the ability to kind of put all those parts and pieces together, operating client-owned devices, client-owned software, and then bringing in services on top of that, game changer, absolute game changer. Takes a couple times for the customer to understand what you're saying because there aren't very many people in the market who are positioning that. So believe that is it for today's topic. I really appreciate you guys, joining us, and I know we got some time for some questions and maybe some Q&A and a little bit of a raffle here. Again, this is part of our Cyber Defense Bootcamp series. We have one more coming up, I believe, next week on Wednesday. But if you want to check any of these out, we have a partner page here. You just click on the link, and we'll send this content out to you guys after the event as well. But if you click on that link, all of these recordings are in there. So if you want to go back and check them out, or you have any questions like, hey, Adam, you said X, Y, and Z, our partner team, this is our partner portal. Please go check it out. Let us know. And we'll be reaching out to you guys to kind of walk through some, some different focused initiatives if you'd like to. And then I know this is a cybersecurity event, and you probably should never scan QR codes. But if you want to scan a QR code and you trust us, this will take you to our registration page for the next webinar coming up next week.
Yeah, in the webinar is going to be, I got notes here, navigating network security and access control solutions. So yeah, that'll be a great webinar. Adam, really helpful advice. I will take issue with one quick thing when you mentioned that linemen are not the sexiest position in football. I disagree, but that's just me.
Well, you can't move the ball down the field without solid guards and tackles.
There you go. That's a fact.
But there's not maybe it's not the sexiest. Not a lot of glory. Not a lot of glory.
There you go. Okay, beautiful. Now that we solved the most important question, let's get to some others. John's wondering, have you come across a prospect that has a solo tech advisor outsourced? And if so, is it better to start with the outsourced guy or propose direct to company owner?
I'd say it really depends on your relationship. If that's a trusted resource, that's kind of their outsourced, MSP or managed service provider, they definitely have opinions. They're in the trenches themselves. They're operating their own businesses, and so coming to them as a potential helper for them, as opposed to like challenging their beliefs or what they think needs to happen. It's very difficult to maintain cybersecurity awareness. There's a lot going on constantly. So if you have a client who has an outsourced MSP, those MSPs they're running and gunning and trying to keep people operational, and it's a tough business to operate in. So if you can approach them from hey, I'm here to help you do your job better, and help you do more with less. Hey, I have this partner that we can bring in to help support what you're doing. That's usually the best way to go, unless you have a relationship with that owner and that leadership, and you want to go directly and from more of a competitive standpoint. You could definitely do that, but it's really dependent on the relationship you have with that company. We've gone in both ways. We've walked in the back door while someone who maybe used to operate the environment was being walked out the front and taken over support. Just it happens, the nature of the business. But that's not ideal. That's usually a painful process. So it's always better to partner and see how we can work together with folks, but that's really usually up to them.
Cool. Great question, John. Thanks. We have another question submitted through. So when you sign up for the webinar, you can submit questions. We love those questions. Really appreciate it. One of them we got was, can Quest support existing cybersecurity tools?
Yeah, no, great question. So the answer is yes. And the way we do that is we have a division of our company called our Weights and Measures division. And Quest runs a monitor of monitors, which means that every firewall out there, every switch, every network component, and every endpoint operating system, they're all sending off alerts and logged events at all times. So if you go to this website, if you go to this location, if you click on this, all of that is tracked, all of that is logged, all of that is done. Someone hits your firewall, that's a logged event. So we have a weights and measures division that their entire purpose and all they do all day long is update and ingest new alerts and different code and different logs from different devices. So if we don't have that platform embedded today, pretty much all the developers out there are creating APIs, and we create our own that can ingest alerts from pretty much any platform that's out there. All the organizations out there, whether it's Microsoft or Palo Alto or Cisco or Fortinet or name the vendor, they're creating ways for people to ingest their alerts and manage and support their products. And that's what our weights and measures division does. So we can say yes to a lot. Every once in a while we get a, yeah, no, we can't support that. But for the most part, yeah, that's one of the ways, like I was mentioning earlier, you can really change the game with your clients because we can manage, support, and operate existing investments. That's a big opportunity.
Great. And final question, and then we'll get to the raffle. What are the best questions to ask and start a conversation?
Ooh, well,
I know that's you got 5 minutes, Adam. You got less than 5 minutes to answer this enormous question.
no, it's a good question. It depends who you're talking to, but I found the most success is pretend like you don't know. You might think you know the answer to what you're asking. Try to. It's not necessarily who you're asking the question to, but try to act like you don't know. Because if you know, your clients are going to kind of sense you kind of moving them down the path, right? You have an angle. You're trying to sell something. You're trying to position something. But if you have a genuine curiosity around what they're doing or how they're struggling with something or what they're, what's kind of the priority, in their cybersecurity world, what are they dealing with right now? What's going well, what's not? If you have a general curiosity about that, people tend to open up and share those discussions with you, or at least give you some clues. If you ask kind of leading questions, usually people will kind of, at least in my experience, they'll kind of sniff that out and kind of block and not share their real pain point.
So would you say it's important to be like authentically curious, like not like fake, where you're kind of like leading them down the path, but like, hey, I'm sincerely wanting to understand what you're about and what you need help in.
Yeah, that's something that really works well when you're having that business outcome conversation, because your close rate will spike. You'll, at least in my experience, if you don't act like you know the answer before you ask the question, you're going to get more authentic response, and then you can pivot to what they actually care about. A lot of people, I always reference this, and I'm not sure how many people get it, but there's a great Family Guy episode where they cut to this guy who's getting a tattoo, and he's a tough biker dude, and there's the tattoo artist who kind of has that interesting voice, and the tough biker guy says, yeah, hey, I want a flaming skull and cross and like blah 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 blah, and the tattoo artist says, well, I have Kermit the Frog. I'm going to draw Kermit the Frog. And he's literally giving the guy a tattoo. And the biker's like, no, I want a flaming skull and, this exploding blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, yeah, but I have Kermit the Frog. So that's sometimes how people sell cybersecurity. It's like you ask the question and then it's almost like you gaslight the person. Like you didn't hear their response. You're just going to go down your track.
So when you're out there selling to bikers, really listen. When you're selling cybersecurity to bikers, really listen to them. Is that what you're saying, Adam?
Sorry, that's why it's a horrible analogy, and I always
it works. I understand.
The idea is if your person wants Kermit the Frog, then that's great. Yeah. You got Kermit the Frog. You got Kermit the Frog all day. But the person in the chair might not want Kermit the Frog, right? They need help with something else. And if you go down that one track, hey, here's the 5 questions you need to ask in the order and the inflection in your voice you have to give to hit that mark, a very limited portion of the market is dealing with that challenge you're trying to address. So it's a different conversation. You're not leading them down that path. You're kind of having that flexibility conversation with them. And not everyone's going to buy into it. You know, some of the market, a lot of the market wants to get pitched to, right? They kind of bring you into the room and they wait to hear your pitch. That's not what we do. But what we do and what we try to help our partners do is, hey, there's a lot of things out there, a lot of opportunity in the cybersecurity layered approach where folks are challenged and they need help. So to your point, Paul, yeah, having that genuine curiosity about what they're dealing with and, you know, would they like any help with that, can lead to huge opportunities.
Great. Also, what we do at Quest is offer raffles. Smooth segue. So for that, we're bringing on Justin. So Justin, if you can jump on, that'd be great. Justin is part of our partner marketing team, and he, if you can handle the raffle, Justin, that'd be great.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. So our winner for today's raffle is Chris Poskowich. So we have your info, Chris, and we'll be sending that over to you shortly. Thank you.
Hey, right on. Congrats, Chris.
Congratulations, Chris. And if you have any questions and you didn't get a chance to ask them here in the chat, like email us, let us know. Like we want to be engaged in helping you out. And if you like a couple things, if you like the banter between Adam and I, and you're like, I want to listen to these guys every other week, we have a podcast called The Incident Report. And we'd love for you to jump on and listen and be a part of that. We get your questions answered there as well. Again, the final, Adam, and dare I say, save the best for last, is December 18th, the Cybersecurity Bootcamp series, Navigating Network Security and Access Control Solutions. That's going to be December 18th. So, Adam, anything else I'm forgetting before we wrap it up?
No, again, thanks everyone for your time. Really appreciate you spending some time with us today. And like Paul said, we want to learn, we want to get better, we want to improve for you and for our partner team. So any comments, feedback, positives, great. Negatives, even better. If you got any feedback on how we can improve, please shoot us a note. And then, we're here for you guys. So thanks again, and everyone have a great week.